I didn't really get into the arts till I was probably in elementary school, and I started acting at a local children's theater at Stepping Stone Theater in St. Paul. As far as like theater goes, I'd go to the Guthrie on school field trips, and I never saw a Native person on stage. I never saw any examples of Native people doing this work. When you're an actor, you only have so much control over what the story gets to be, and that you get to bring yourself and your views into a role. But when it comes down to it, like, you memorize the words on the page, the words that are given to you. I love to write, and I love speaking through my own voice just as much as I love speaking through a character's voice. And it's been really rewarding for me, and I've been lucky enough to be really nurtured by a lot of my theater community in what I've been doing. I often talk about my paternal grandmother when I talk about my theater work, especially the work that I do here in Minneapolis. In that, so my father was born in 1946 to a single mom, and she had run away from boarding school. She went to school in Wahpeton, North Dakota, and she ran away and came to Minneapolis, where she gave birth to my dad. But because she was unwed and a runaway, he was confiscated from her at birth, and he grew up in foster care. And by the time he aged out, when he was 18, she had already passed away. Mm-hmm. So they never really got to meet, except, I guess, in the very beginning. But I think about my grandmother a lot, in that here I am in the city that she lived in, that she came to, and spent the last years of a very short life. And, she wasn't much older than me when she passed away. And I think of her so much in this work that I do, just because I think of the difference a generation makes, and that the life that she lived here is so incredibly different than the life that I do, and that she was practically invisible in this city, and this city didn't do anything to protect her or take care of her, and actually quite the opposite. It did a lot of harm to her, and she died quite anonymously here, without having any agency over her own story or her own voice. And it still it makes me emotional every time I do a show here, to think about the fact that I get to be on stage, and I get to be heard and seen in a very real, tangible way. My humanity gets to be literally, people pay to see it, to see me be a living, breathing person, and to listen to what I have to say is literally my job. And I know how valuable that is, and how rare that is. And so she is definitely one that's always been a part of me, and the work that I do. And I feel like so much of my work is honoring the life that I wish she could have lived, or the world that she could have been in. This idea that as actors of color, we so often aren't compensated for the work that we're actually doing in these rooms. And that, like, what I did on that Peter Pan show was very much the work of a cultural consultant and a dramaturg, but I just wasn't getting paid for that. I was getting paid for being an actor. I've been really trying to dream and scheme of what a future looks like, where we ask and really demand that we get paid for the work that we do. And I do think that means labeling ourselves as things other than just an actor. And I think there's a future to be had where I don't have to be just Tiger Lily, but I can be Tiger Lily and a dramaturg and a cultural consultant. Yeah, being an artist is really running a small business, and the business, like, happens to be yourself in what you create, which is very vulnerable because it doesn't feel like business, it feels personal. I'm really driven by reciprocity, this like concept of like a really non-capitalistic way of giving and taking, and that I think is really inherent in the way that I was taught as a native kid, is this idea that like we always should offer something. And I think in a lot of ways storytelling and writing and acting have been my way to offer to my community specifically, like, you know, going all the way back to like my grandma, to the idea that if I can get on a stage and I can tell a story, or I can write a story down, like that's my way that I'm giving her voice in a sense. And I've been fairly proud of the fact that I've been able to start a career and to build a career in my own way at my own time. And that, you know, I didn't go to college. I didn't go through a formal theater training program, which, you know, a lot of times people are told that you have to, that that's the only way that you can do this work, is if you know, spend a lot of money and do those 4 years. And so I think I am really proud of myself, and knowing myself and knowing that that wasn't the path that I wanted to do, but I knew what I did want to do, and I've just kind of kept at it, and it still has worked out for me. Again, as artists, like I feel like most of our work is relationship anyway. It's about building relationships with people through our work or through interpersonal relationships. And so I guess, yeah, I just would love to be remembered as a good family member, as a good community member, as a good person, I guess.